I'm Wendy Edson. I'm the artistic director of the San Luis Obispo International Film Festival, and just want to welcome all of you. People are still joining. I've been involved in the film festival for many years, and this is. I'm just going to remind everybody to mute themselves too as you get on the call, if you wouldn't mind. This is our first Meet the Distributors panel, actually, so I'm hoping this will become a regular thing that we do every year. And one of the great things about, I don't know if you can say great things, one of the good things about this year, this odd year that we're having, is that it's allowing us to bring people to the festival that wouldn't be able to come necessarily otherwise. So we are excited to introduce you to two people that are panelists, and one more hopefully will be joining soon. So I'm just going to go ahead and introduce, first of all, Tony Piantadosi, and he is from Gravitas Ventures. He joined in 2018, following development and acquisitions roles at Premier Entertainment Group and Televix Entertainment. A lifelong cinephile, he strives to bring independent films to the largest possible audience, with past successes including Scenic Route, Match, Little Accidents, and Sundance Best Director winners Afternoon Delight and Middle of Nowhere. Originally from Boston, he graduated cum laude from Northeastern University with a Bachelor of Arts in Cinema Studies and Communications. Welcome, Tony. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
And then we have Danielle Mccarthy Bowles. You want to just raise your hand yeah, there you go. Danielle McCarthy Bowles is the VP of Publicity at Magnolia Pictures. She's overseen publicity and promotion for independent film hits, including Man on Wire, winner of the 2008 Academy Award for Best Documentary, Melancholia, Shoplifters, The Square, and Oscar-nominated documentaries I Am Not Your Nego, and RGB, among many others. McCarthy Bowles produced the critically acclaimed documentary Big Star, Nothing Can Hurt Me, which was released theatrically nationwide and on demand by Magnolia Pictures in 2013. That film was also released internationally by Universal Music Group in 2014. McCarthy Bowles holds a BFA in Cinema Studies from New York University and an MA in Media Studies from the New School. Welcome, Danielle, and I know you're in New York, and Tony's in LA, so we've got both coasts covered. I don't think we have Jeffrey Winter here yet, so we're just going to jump right in, and Jeffrey may hopefully join us. He's representing Film Collaborative, and they actually have a couple movies in our festival this year, and we have also a Magnolia Films entertainment picture in the festival this year as well. So it looks like we've got a nice mix of filmmakers and some festival goers as well who are just interested in the process and hearing from the experts. So I'm going to open it up to questions, and I would love it if when we get to that point, people can just raise their hands and we'll try to see you and call on you. Just stay muted till then, if you wouldn't mind. And I'm just going to lead off with a couple of questions that you probably all will be interested in knowing the answers to. So I thought if we could just take turns, Tony and Danielle, from your different perspectives. Can you tell us what you and your company look for in an independent film? Kind of a wide range of questions.
So in terms of what we acquire both narratives and documentaries, and we cast a pretty wide net in terms of what those are about. There are obviously genres that are more commercial, you know, if it's a thriller or an action film or a sci-fi film or a horror film, those are generally more commercial, but you know, we are open to all kinds. When it is a documentary, you know, we kind of go on one end of the spectrum or the other, either something that is kind of a comfort food documentary that's a pleasant experience to watch, or something about, you know, social injustice, something that has a political message to it, or something about like a famous figure, whether they are political or a musician or what have you. Yeah, we really look at all types, and there's different ways that those films work in different places where they work. some films work theatrically, some are better for streamers, some are more specifically suited to the drive-in experience that we're having now than indoor theaters. We've been putting a lot of our like horror films in drive-ins, for example. So really, we cast a pretty wide net. We're looking for all kinds.
Thank you. Danielle?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of some pretty similar when it comes to Magnolia. I mean, I think we're always open to lots of different types of films and genres, and it just really depends on kind of what's working in the marketplace currently. And we were really heavy on social justice for a while there for documentaries. They're a pretty heavy lift, usually a lot of work, but really important to our to what we do at Magnolia. But yeah, it just really depends on kind of the marketplace. And right now, genre films are really kind of having a moment. I mean, I think people want some fun escapism, and so we're focusing more on that. But it really just depends. But we're open to everything, and we love a good classic art house film as well. So.
Okay, thank you. And so this has obviously been a very unusual year, and I'm sort of curious to know how have things changed now that virtual watching has become such a thing, and people have learned, I think, this year how to access movies at home, much quicker than they might have otherwise. How is that affecting the types of movies or the style in which you're acquiring films?
Well, I mean, 2020 was the best year we've ever had. We had a larger audience for our films and larger amount of revenue from people watching those films than in the 15 years prior. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is that people are stuck at home, and there's only so many things they can do with their day. And so the movies that were going to have an audience and going to be profitable, they were more profitable and had a larger audience than they would have. The movies that were more of a gamble, that weren't necessarily going to have that large audience, they also did well, because I think that people, they go past their first choice and their second choice, and they decide to take a gamble on a film that maybe they wouldn't consider as usually, in their wheelhouse, something that maybe they're not open to usually. And I think that is very useful, actually, in terms of getting people to diversify their taste. I know that Magnolia also deals with a lot of documentaries, and I think that the streamers really helped people engage with documentaries, in a more broad way. Not a lot of general audiences would go to the theaters to see a documentary, and they started to get a much larger audience, I think, when they started getting carried at home, and people would, give it a whirl. And theatrically, we had a great year too, because the studios kept pushing their big tentpoles, and so we were taking the screens that they left over. But VOD in particular, people watching at home on demand, that business really did well. And I do lament the injury to the theatrical model that has happened. I think that it kind of just accelerated. COVID just accelerated what was already happening. But I don't think theatrical will go. And I think that in particular, once people have the opportunity to go outside again, to do things in public again, I mean, I am so just raring to go, as I think a lot of people are, to go and see something on an IMAX screen or even at a little art house theater, just to, get out of the house and experience that communal thing again. So, right. I think there has definitely been, a real dent to the theatrical business and what people expect will be their engagement in each different films, whether they watch it at home or outside their home. But I think that the eagerness to re-enter public life will keep that theatrical business afloat when we're all able to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, for us, Magnolia, we also had a very good 2020. Weren't really sure what to expect at the beginning of this a year ago, but it was a very good year thanks to VOD and drive-ins and other, just streaming platforms. So it was a little, stressful at first, just how all this is going to work, but it people want content to watch, and I agree with Tony about, you know, them, they may not run out to the theater to watch a documentary that might kind of feel like a bit of like medicine to watch, but you know, that are taking chances on things more because they can just watch it from home and doesn't require them going, you know, in the before times, paying a lot of money to go to the theater, and you're buying food and drinks and whatnot. So that's been a positive for us. But we're just trying to always evolve. And I think that Magnolia is 100% committed to the theatrical experience. And that's super important to us as a company before this, and will be in the future. So we're really looking forward to being able to be back into theaters and supporting theaters in any way we can. In fact, we started a virtual cinema kind of platform through Inventive, where we could you know, share the profits with the independent theaters so that, you know, their local patrons could support them. And so we did that pretty early on, and I think now it's a kind of a standard thing that everyone's doing. I'm not saying we necessarily were the first to do it, but I think that was something that was really important to us to jump on from the get-go. And yeah, I think the theaters appreciate it, and they appreciate us trying to do whatever we can to support them through this.
Yeah, I think that is an excellent program, and it is going to be interesting this next year or two, or when things start to sort out, and there's going to be a certain number of people who will continue just to stay home, but I think they'll maybe more adventurous, and then there's always going to be people who want to get out and go to a movie, and so I think it's going to be interesting watching how it settles out from here on. I'm going to just ask a question sort of that I would ask if I was a filmmaker right now on this call, and then I'm going to open it up to everybody else. And that question is just, okay, so I've just made a movie, post-production is wrapping up. Now what? What should I do if I wanted to contact distributors to have them take a look at my movie? How does that happen?
Well, you can reach directly out to me in particular and send me the feature and the trailer and the poster if you've got one, and we would take a look at it. And that could be, you know, the easiest way really to speak directly to a distributor and see if you can get a deal and have a release your movie. The other way is to go the festival route and to submit to festivals and try to get a premiere through one of those, which can, you know, give it some more prestige and have, you know, that media coverage and, you know, have those laurels and those accolades. And in that case, you know, you should approach that festival premiere with the options of who would be selling that, you know, who would then be speaking to me to potentially pick up the movie. So that can be you representing the movie yourself. You could go through a sales agent, or if you have a talent agent, they could be selling the movie for you, or an entertainment lawyer. You know, the upside to going through one of those people is that they know all of the people who do my job, and they already know all of our phone numbers and our first names, and they know all the questions to ask. The upside to not using one of those people is that probably you're going to get the same deal anyway, and you wouldn't have to pay them the commission you would pay them, but they know 100 questions to ask and things to push back on. And then obviously you go into the negotiation of like, what rights are you going to distribute and for how long, and, you know, is there an advance and what's your distribution fee and all those other ins and outs of distribution deals. But the first question really would be like, do you go the festival route, and do you do that still in the COVID world, or is it going to be after COVID? You know, whatever after COVID looks like. Yeah, that's really the first question: is do you go the festival route or just send it directly to a distributor?
Yeah, and Magnolia is also, I think, I'm not in the acquisitions department, but they, from what I understand, are very open to just people sending submissions. And don't have to necessarily, there's not a lot of barriers to bringing a film to them. So I recommend just, you know, our contact info is on our website, and, you know, you can find all that readily available. But yeah, I agree there. That is kind of the two different ways to go. And having worked at Magnolia for 16 years and also made a film that Magnolia actually bought, it was interesting to see the process on both sides of it. And we had a sales agent for a film that I produced, and it was really invaluable to have his was Josh Bond of Submarine, and to have his perspective on things and be able, especially because it was more than a little weird because I was working at Magnolia and they were interested in the film, so it was a little weird. I really wanted to be not sort of, I wanted a middle person because it just was very strange. But yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I think festival play, especially, hopefully we can get back to that world, but festival play for a film can be really beneficial overall. And it's also a good networking opportunity for people and meeting people in the industry and fellow filmmakers. So I mean, I think that's a great way to go about it, but I understand that some people, there's barriers to the festival world in terms of, entry fees and, if you can take time off to travel to these festivals, although, some festivals are very accommodating with that kind of covering travel expenses in certain regards. But yeah, I think that I love film festivals. That's another part of my job is I book festivals. So I think that's a really important part of the kind of experience of getting a film to market, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this definitely has been an unusual year for the lack of networking that's been happening, but we're trying, just like all the other festivals, kind of keep the ball rolling at least until we can all be together again. I'd like to ask for questions, and when you ask, if you could just say your name and whether you're a filmmaker or just who you are, basically. So do we have any questions for me? And I'm okay. I see a young man there. Ricky, go ahead.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for doing this panel. I made the film Not Just Another Day. It's a social justice documentary about a Black American who was arrested for cannabis possession, and it juxtaposes that with the multi-billion-dollar legal cannabis industry. And I guess my question for you guys is, I've been noticing on streaming platforms and video on demand that a lot of short films are being accepted more onto these platforms. So I just want to hear what you guys have to say about that. Is it a good time for short films, or is it what's going on with that world right now?
So short films don't really fit into our business model, so we don't really acquire short films. We're only really looking for feature length. But I've always viewed short films as a great way to get your foot in the door with a festival in particular. I think that using a short to get programmed into a festival and then going back perhaps and expanding that short into a feature later on at a festival, it can be a nice through line and narrative, like the Whiplash kind of narrative. If you basically had a short that was just the first scene of that movie with a different kid instead of Miles Teller, but with J.K. Simmons, the short did well. He expands it to the feature. He comes back, and the rest is history. I think that they're very useful in that sense for getting your foot in the door at a festival. I don't have as much experience with monetizing shorts, and it's just not really our business model. I will tell you that when people come to me with shorts, I've often said to them, look, I don't buy shorts, so here's what you should do. Go find 4 or 5 friends who made shorts that share some DNA with yours, edit them together, come back to me with an anthology movie, and I'll buy your anthology movie. And some people have done that. But I think maybe Danielle might have more color to this, but it's not really in our company's business model.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we also are saying we don't buy shorts, we just buy feature length films. But I agree with you. I've heard more and more there being platforms seem to be purchasing more short films, which I think is really great. And I definitely have met through festival kind of mentoring filmmakers. I've met filmmakers who made a short that, you know, I thought was really great and encouraged them to expand it to a feature length film. And I've seen, you know, the full length film that they expanded upon. So I think it's a great way to, like Tony said, just to get kind of your feet in the door with festivals. And also you can, you know, if you get the film into those qualifying Academy festivals, it'd be, you know, it's a great thing to kind of get it in the mix with the Oscar shorts and whatnot. But yeah, it's just not something that we don't buy shorts, but I encourage that kind of as a stepping stone to greater kind of exposure.
Cool, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Chelsea, hi.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
I direct feature length music doc Bleeding Audio. And I have a question kind of about release urgency. And I was wondering if you guys could share your perspective on this kind of production pause that existed for major studios, and if you feel like there's any urgency for independent films to land deals earlier now, or if there's any benefit to possibly just continuing on the festival circuit for a bit longer and trying for, you know, a stacked laureled poster, or if we should just try and strike now, you know?
My advice is strike now. I think that if you release the movie in 2021, you will make twice as much money and have double the size of the audience as next year. You want to release your movie during COVID, which some people are, you know, there's some movies that were supposed to play last year at South by Southwest or Tribeca that still haven't been screened for audiences, or they're supposed to play last South by Southwest and they're playing this South by Southwest. And I think that those filmmakers or their agents really made a miscalculation in thinking, we don't want to put this out during COVID and, like, you know, no one's going to watch it. You know, this is a theatrical play. Most of the time it is not a theatrical play. It was always a VOD play. And if you release it now in VOD, you're going to make exponentially more, and exponentially more people are going to see your film, period. Maybe that's not in person. Like, what do you really care about? Like, that this many people see your movie and half of them were in the theater, or that this many people see your movie and most of them were at home? I'd rather take the latter if I were. So, you know, there are people who I know, like, got in this festival and passed, like, didn't want to play the festival because they're like, what's virtual Sundance, or, you know, what's virtual SLO? Like, what do these matter for me as a filmmaker? And I say, play the festival, take those laurels, and get those to bring you some more press, because more people got to go to Sundance this year than ever before, really. You know, because they can't afford to fly to Park City and see these movies like, you know, Coda or whatever is going to be the big movie from the festival until it comes out in their little Kentucky town, you know, a year and a half later. So, like, they get to be part of the conversation. But ultimately, like, it would be a big mistake to hold your movie, because a fraction of the audience will show up compared to right now.
Couldn't agree more with what Tony said, for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good question, Chelsea. Is there another question?
We got one question in the chat. It says, what's the best way to find a distributor for the educational market?
I mean, at our company, we handle all rights, and in particular, if it's a documentary, there's a lot of business through educational, whether that's through libraries or universities. And you shouldn't really go directly to the educational buyers, I would say. Like, at least when I'm speaking to a filmmaker, I say, we have those relationships with, you know, those 20 educational partners you'd want to speak with. So it's very important to us for a documentary in particular to have, you know, educational streaming rights and educational DVD rights. So, you know, my advice is to go through a distributor like us or like Magnolia and have them approach those partners with those relationships they have.
Yeah, typically Magnolia, and other distributors are going to want to have all rights. So you might be, doing yourself a disservice by going that route. And we work, with a lot of educational distributors and have great relationships with them. And so it would behoove you to just approach a distributor proper, all those relationships.
Thanks. I see a question from, tell us how to pronounce your name at the same time.
Xuan. My name is Xuan Liu. I'm the writer and director of Bloom. It's my first feature film. It's in the festival short cine competition this year. It's a narrative feature. And we filmed it in China, but we did some post-production here in the United States. And the DP is also from America. So my question is, do you guys acquire international films at all? Especially, well, this film is in Chinese, so with English subtitle. For films like this, is there anything you guys particularly looking for when you acquire a film?
So for us, it does decrease what I can offer if the film is in a foreign language. It does typically kind of cut my offers down a little bit. And it's something where we look for a particular genre. So like if it's a foreign language film, then usually we would want it to be a more commercial genre, like a horror film or action film or sci-fi film.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we bought a movie from China. I bought this Jackie Chan movie called Vanguard, which was an insane action movie where basically it was like if Jackie Chan were kind of put into one of the later Fast and Furious movies. But that had Jackie Chan and it had excellent production values, and that to us equaled, it was worth picking that film up and to the American audience because we knew it was a commercial genre. On the other end of the spectrum, I bought a film from Sundance, which is a documentary from Chile called The Mole Agent, which is not necessarily checking all those boxes of this is the commercial genre. It's a documentary. It is about generally octogenarians. It's a much older appeal, but it's a very charming film. And it was just the quality of the film itself that made us say, okay, like this isn't Jackie Chan in a car chase, but it is that good, and we see that value here, and it's paid off. We're shortlisted for 2 Oscars, and we'll find out on Monday. And I know that Magnolia, also you guys have Collective, right? So we're the 2 movies that are in foreign and documentary.
Monday,
baby.
Yeah, we buy a lot of international films. I mean, a lot, I think, and they could be genre films, they could be dramas, like we did very well with Shoplifters a few years back. The Square, another film. We buy a lot of films from Scandinavia. And yeah, I mean, I think Magnolia is very open to all different types of it doesn't necessarily have to fall into that commercial kind of category, if you will, but if we like the film, we think we can do something with it, we'll definitely consider it. So yeah, just take a look at some of our catalog online. You can kind of see the type of films, I think there's even like an international category on our website that you can just sort of browse what films we've released.
And that's a great example of, the different goals of different companies and what they're going for. And Magnolia definitely has a much longer history with foreign language content. And so, it's something that depending on what your film is, like what is the best home for it? And, something that I've been striving to do in my position is to expand that, that horizon of what kind of film we look for. So, the first foreign language film we ever released theatrically was when I got to the company. It was a film that played Fantasia. It was called A Breath Away, which was this disaster movie with Olga Kurylenko about like toxic mist coming out of the ground in Paris. And I'd only been at this job for maybe 2 months or 3 months. And I said, look, guys, to my team, I said, I've been here for 3 months. This is the only movie I liked. It's in French. Who cares? Like, it's got great production value. It's got a Bond girl in it. You know, Olga's a name. We can do something with the movie. And so there are always exceptions to be made. But yeah, this is a great example when you're looking at different companies and considering their history.
I see.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I just want a shout out for Schwinn. Is that, am I saying it right?
Oh, yes, that's correct.
A beautiful movie, Bloom. Anybody who hasn't seen it yet, check it out. And I was just, that made me wonder if say it wasn't a fit for your company, would you refer possibly to like a filmmaker to a different distributor, or is that just kind of a no-no? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, look, we want everyone's films to get out there, and we want them to have a career where they can continue to make the next one and the next one. Because if this movie doesn't get released, maybe they never get a chance to make the second movie that I would want, or that does fit our business model. So we want everyone to continue making movies and continue sending us new movies. So absolutely.
Right. Questions?
Raj has been raising his hand, so I'm gonna
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Tony, Danielle, so nice of you to do this. Thank you so much. I'm a producer. I had a title at SLO last year. I have a very specific question. So I recently produced a documentary called The Reunited States. We did a distribution deal. We got the film out on TVOD. It's in its first window. It just released a few weeks ago. It's available on all the major TVODs and Fandango now and all that. And we're seeing that the financial performance is a little weak on the title. So I was curious if you had any thoughts or guidance on just like what the right way is to market the film when it's in that transaction window. For example, we did our digital advertising through Submersive. We hired a top tier publicity firm. We got the film reviewed. It's on Rotten Tomatoes, and we're still seeing pretty weak performance on the film. So I'm just curious if you had any nuggets or insights in terms of how to best market the film when it's available in that transaction video on demand window.
So I'm looking at the movie now, and my question, the first question would be, have Van Jones or Meghan McCain promoted it on social media?
Yes. Yeah. So they're both executive producers. They promoted the film extensively on social media. They've done interviews. So they've been quite involved in the publicity of the film.
I mean, that is one of the biggest ways is to have any notable people who either are in the movie or who are kind of friends of the film to promote it on social media. That's one of the best ways that we can do that. I mean, Van actually promoted a movie that we released, which was a narrative film called Doubting Thomas, which was about basically a Caucasian couple who has an African-American child. And it raises question of like, wait a minute, that was even possible. And then like, he's got a friend who's African-American with something happening behind the scenes here. And it was a very interesting premise, and Van Jones promoted that. And it wasn't necessarily a film that was going to get that kind of level of involvement from a person who wasn't in it and wasn't a producer. But I would recommend trying to expand that network then to include, others who weren't necessarily in the movie or that produced the movie, because that can really help. And also there are some movies that will do quite well in other windows. We have some films that are performing very well now on AVOD, on ad-supported VOD, that like we have some movies, like there's one in particular that I've been looking at that basically has made as much in the last 9-10 months on AVOD as basically it did in the 11 years prior. And it's just like suddenly gaining all this momentum with that audience, and that audience is growing. So even if you feel that your film is underperformed on the transactional side, like that doesn't mean that it's not going to perform somewhere else. It could mean that streaming is where the big life for it comes. Or
that's very true. Yeah. So that's exactly what our distributor told us too, which is, look, the film can have a life on TVOD, but it could also have a life on SVOD or AVOD. So totally hear you on that. It's just right now it's in its TVOD window. So we're brainstorming a little bit on how we can boost the financial performance. So appreciate your insights. Danielle, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, we go through the same thing with it being really, really crucial to have any kind of social influencer support. And influencer doesn't have to be like, I mean, it could just be anyone who has a platform that would be willing to speak about the film. And we spend a lot of time kind of putting together a list and making sure that all our teams are putting their heads together, who they know that would post about the film. And it's just really, it's bringing the kind of any kind of awareness can with anyone who's willing to share it, and anyone who has a you know, a substantial enough platform to share. So is good advice and something that we do all the time. And yeah, so whatever you can do to boost that, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to miss anyone else, but Chris, I see Chelsea's got another.
Jacob's raising his hand.
I'm sorry.
He's had it for a while, so let's do him
But
first.
Grace, why don't you, Grace, you call people out, okay? Because I can't see everybody.
Sounds good. All right, go for it, Jacob.
Ooh, hey, everybody. Yeah, thanks again for doing this panel and for answering questions. Mine is pretty short. It's just to follow up on the short question, because I know there's a lot of scripted and unscripted shorts at this festival. So even if your companies don't really work with shorts, I was curious if you've seen more distribution happening recently. I know, like, for example, The Atlantic has a shorts program where they highlight docu-series or docu-shorts that have been around at festivals, or like Hulu has a horror shorts thing that I don't know if they commission, or, you know, so I'm just kind of curious if you know anything more broadly about that landscape. Are companies only commissioning things, or are they buying shorts? And if so, are there distributors that are helping make those deals, or how can we get our shorts in front of any potential buyers, if there are any?
I mean, I think that the streamers, as you mentioned and some other people mentioned, they are gaining an appetite for shorts. And so I think that as streaming is gaining strength, that shorts are going to find more opportunities like that. You know, beyond the expanded appetite at the streamers, I don't have a lot of kind of doors to point to in terms of like which companies to approach, but maybe Danielle has better ideas than I.
I mean, I don't, unfortunately, I mean, I don't even work in the acquisitions department, so it's hard for me to say, but I do see anecdotally that there's, you know, you'll see HBO, I feel like HBO Max has had more shorts. There's, you know, the streamers. I mean, it seems like, it does seem like that's happening more and more, but I'm just not, besides just approaching the streamers directly in however fashion you can, that would be, I don't know if there's like sales agents that like deal directly with shorts. I honestly, I'm just not sure. I'm sorry.
I mean, there is, I think using the streamers is one of the best routes. I mean, you know, the way that Netflix got their foot in the door at the Oscars was shorts originally, you know, and that's something that I think continues to be a factor in theirs and others' minds. Of also, not only are we going to perhaps get a statue for one of these shorts, and there's a reason we should program it on our service that doesn't have to follow the theatrical model, but also it's a way to kind of scout filmmakers. A lot of filmmakers, you know, will make a short and then they'll either do a narrative or a documentary as an expansion when they go to features. So there's a way of kind of scouting talent in acquiring shorts as well.
And
yeah, and I also would, oh, go ahead. Oh, you know, there, like Magnolia, we previously handled the distribution for the shorts program for the Academy Awards. Now just someone from our staff does that independently, but like reaching out to Shorts International is, I think, a great way just to get on their radar. And you know, if you get into enough of these qualifying Academy festivals, then, you know, getting the film in that kind of, if you are, you know, lucky enough to get the film shortlisted for the Academy, then I mean, that's a huge thing and it is a great stepping stone. So, but there is, with like Shorts International, I think that is a really good, it's not, they're not just, I think they really are like trying to create like a community for shorts filmmakers and support them. So that's definitely something to look into.
And I thank you for doing that, Danielle, because as a consumer, I am an Oscar completist, and I would often go to the New Art or the music hall and watch all the nominated shorts in one ticket, you know?
It's,
the animated ones are usually more
it's very popular.
Yeah, I would go, especially for the animated ones. The docs I would go too, but by the end you're just like, man, what a bleak world we live in by the end of those documentary shorts.
Yeah, and then it's such a crazy thing to distribute them, because you know, you find out like, okay, these are the shortlisted films, or these are going to be the films included, and then you have like a month to, you know, deliver all of these different films and release and get it ready for a release. It's nuts, but it is a very it's a really, you know, important that that those films are getting into the theatrical space in front of audiences, and audiences love them. It always does really well.
Cool, thanks.
Sure.
Chelsea, did you still have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to take up everybody's time, but I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about how much you do lean on your filmmakers for marketing, and how much you kind of carry forth. I know that for our film, it's a music doc about a band, but it's a much more general story about the digital age of music. And so we've been able to have like a thriving and engaged audience for like the last 6 years that I've been working on it. But we're, you know, at film festivals, we're kind of expanding that bubble of people who have no idea who the band is. And at least for us, we had looked to a distributor to help us expand that further. And I'm just wondering, again, like how much you lean to your filmmakers, or how much you kind of help expand the bubble of audience.
For us, it's really a case-by-case basis, depending on what the film is and what the elements, you know, of that have built-in marketing might be. So, you know, there's sometimes where we're handling all the publicity internally. There's sometimes when we hire an outside PR firm. There's sometimes when they're very involved and they've been, you know, in that mindset since before they even made the movie of how they're going to market it. There's other times when the filmmakers aren't as well versed on how to do that and how to be nimble with it. So it's a collaborative effort that we try to embrace, but it really changes for every single movie based on who those filmmakers are, what resources they have at their disposal. So it's really case by case, but there's some versions where there's, you know, a lot of money being spent, a lot of other companies being involved, and some that are really more internal and handling all ourselves. And there's sometimes when the filmmakers just kind of want to do most of it themselves, and we're just helping out wherever we can.
Yeah, I think every film is a case-by-case basis, not just a music doc or whatever. Just every film we have. I mean, obviously we have, you know, tons of experience in working with different types, especially with music docs. We do a lot of music docs actually. So you know, but it is really like what the filmmakers, what they have to bring to the table, what they need help with, what we can bring to the table. Like oftentimes in the music doc, we bring on a music like PR person who's going to just do all that kind of press outreach just in the music press, which is super helpful for us. And yeah, and I made a music doc, so I know that you're all like about a band that wasn't super well known, but yeah, so it can be challenging, but I think it can be a really, you know, like Tony said, a really collaborative process. And either way, we're going to do whatever we can to, you know, we'll bring on the resources that we need in order to get the film to audiences. We're not going to limit ourselves in that way, and we'll just, you know, do what we can to get it take, you know, as much help as filmmakers need, or if they have all this expertise to bring to us, we're very open to that collaborative process.
Cool, thank you. And what's your music doc called?
Big Star, Nothing Can Hurt Me. It came out in 2013. It's about the band Big Star.
I'm obviously a music doc fan, and now that I've finally finished mine, I'm watching them again. So I'm making a list. Thank you.
Yeah, I worked on mine for 8 years, so I feel your pain.
All right,
Good
we have
luck.
a question from Sarah.
Hi. Thank you guys for doing this. I have a film in the festival, Invitation to the Dance, but I'm not actually asking about this film. I'm asking a question about a friend of mine who made an hour-long documentary called My Brother Jordan. And he spent about 8 or 10 years making it. And it was a very personal documentary about the loss of his brother to cancer. And when he finally was finished with it, he just put it on YouTube and Vimeo for free. He just let it out to the world. Made no money. I mean, obviously some money to make it, but his intention was just to put it out there for himself as sort of a cathartic healing experience. Well, it managed to go viral on TikTok. Somehow the kids, the young generation, started to watch it, and it's been seen 50 million times now. And I didn't watch it when he first released it, in part because I was so sort of conflicted about how he did that. I had mixed feelings about his choice. And so I guess maybe in protest, I was like, I'm just not going to watch it right away. I'll wait. Well, I waited months to watch it, and I finally watched it. It's unbelievable. I mean, an unbelievable documentary, and it should have gone out a different way, in my opinion, for his sake, because he put so much into it. But it's also a brilliant documentary. The question is, is there anything that can be done for a person who has done a work of art that's exceptional and puts it out to the world in this way that can then somehow be marketed or advertised or endorsed? Or, I mean, I know he's not worried about the money part of it, and nor am I on his behalf, but I do think that as a work of art, it's too good for me to process that it hasn't gone through a system to celebrate it. And my question for you is there anything that he could do at this point, now that it's been out? He unleashed it to the world on August the 19th of 2020, so it's been months. But like I said, 15 million views later, and it's on IMDb. I mean, you can look at the reviews. It's such a good film. Is there anything that he can do now?
Well, I generally advise against self-distribution. I think that self-distribution, it's a way to get the film out there, yes, but I think it's only going to be out there on a small percentage of the platforms that it would be, compared to if you went through someone like Gravitas or Magnolia. You can put the film on YouTube, you can put it on Vimeo, you can put it some places and get it seen and make some money. But, to put it on YouTube and to put it on Vimeo and to put it on some other scattered places, that's very different than what a Magnolia or a Gravitas can do, where we can put it in 100 million homes on, 100 different platforms. So it's kind of a short-term, solution. We're looking at not only how do we generate an audience and make money in year 1, in year 2, in year 3, but in year 10. And if you're going to self-distribute a movie, you're pretty much putting, let's say, a 2 or 3 year expiration date on it, best case scenario. So it's a mistake to start out that way. The position he's in now, I mean, I don't have any great advice as to then how to improve it, aside from the fact that it does appear to be, as you said, like going a bit viral and getting that audience and gaining some momentum. And sometimes you just have to live with the reality that your film is going to start making money long after it's released. And it could be that he doesn't actually see a profit on this movie for, 2 or 3 years. But if it is going to be a slow start and like a slow burn, like that's okay. It sounds like his approach to this was less about the profit and more about the act of making it. And that's a very important thing just as a filmmaker generally. Like, ask yourself before you write a page or before you shoot a frame of anything, why am I doing this? Am I doing this to make money? Am I doing this for artistic integrity? Am I doing this because something, amazing happened to my family or tragic happened to my family, as is the case here? Usually the general audience is not going to consider that thing amazing or as significant as you do because it happened to you. So just the fact that you made the film and completed it, that alone should be satisfaction enough, because more often than not, you will lose money from doing it. And you either make something commercial or you make something personal is usually the split. Sometimes they intersect, and that's great. But it sounds like his priorities were in the right place, because just the act of making it and having it seen at all sounds to have satisfied him. I would just advise in the future not to go the self-distribution route for anyone on here.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
they don't have too much to add beyond that, but yeah, I agree with Tony.
I'm gonna just call on Brittany. I see your hand. Hi, Brittany.
My hand. Thank you both so much for doing this. Sorry, my speaker's doing a weird echo thing here. This is my first time ever making a film. The director and producer of Where There Once Was Water. It's a feature-length documentary, and it's the closing night event for the SLO Film Fest. And I'm curious if you can just give us like the Cliff Notes version of the logistics behind E&O insurance and a title report and all of the other things you need as a distributor from us as filmmakers to legally take that jump, because that piece of it is so overwhelming to me. And I've just been defaulting to like, oh, I'll just self-distribute because all of that feels so overwhelming. But self-distributing also feels overwhelming. And you both just said, don't you dare do that. So I'm just curious about all of those pieces. You know, because there's costs involved in that, there's more time and more detail. And I got all the releases signed, but it's probably only a fraction of all the releases I actually needed to get signed. So can you guys touch on just kind of what to be prepared for or what to prepare for you so that we're ready in all of those regards?
Well, thank you. One thing that's very important is clearances. So, you know, the music that's in your movie or the music that's in your trailer, you know, clearances are a big thing. Because sometimes someone will put a movie put a song in their movie, and maybe they only get the festival rights, and that song worked really well, and then they have to swap it out, and maybe they don't tell you right away, and that song might have really made the movie, like, or made 1/3 of the movie, and like those are important things to know. Also, you know, it's important that whatever talent is in your movie, that you have the rights to use their image, you know, in both the trailer, in the poster, in stills, that you have a lot of approved stills from these people. You know, if you make whatever your movie, like, always have a unit photographer. And, you know, if it's a narrative in particular, you know, take your 3 leads, put them in costume, and take high-res photos of them, like 50 of each of them in costume from different angles with a white background, because we're probably going to need those to make a poster. When it comes to something like E&O, you know, basically that is something that in some cases we don't need it necessarily, because there might be no reason down the road for the E&O to actually be in. There's definitely been cases where we have said, look, we can waive the E&O for now until we are looking at a deal with a streamer or a TV platform, and they're going to need it. So then we're going to come back to say, now you have to get the E&O. So you might not have to get it ever, but if you do have to get it, it's because it's required for the streaming deal or this TV deal. But that should be worth the cost, because they're going to have a fee that's going to be much higher than the expense to get that E&O.
Yeah, I can't stress enough what Tony said, and I tell, whenever I do these types of things, I tell filmmakers, take pictures, if you're making a narrative, get stills, like get high-res stills, nothing on your phone, like get a lot of options. And also with a documentary, a lot of times you're going to be dealing with archival, you know, stills or things that might be considered under fair use or something like that. And you really need to make sure that you have rights to what those assets that we're going to need in order to help promote the film. And having made a film, I know it's very daunting to, when you think, oh, I made a film, and like, okay, it's done, like, end of story, but it just opens up a whole can of worms of like stuff that I had no idea was even involved with making a film. So yeah, E&O is something that I don't work in the legal department, so I can't say for sure if we ever waive that, but but yeah, it was really overwhelming. We had to hire a lawyer, of course. We had a lawyer for the film, and we also had a lawyer to handle all of our fair use. That was in the film, and it was a lot, but I'm here to tell you that you can get through it, and you can it might cost money, but I think having an entertainment lawyer and someone to help you with all that is really valuable, and it'll pay off in the long run. So I had no idea what I was doing, and we got through it. So you can too.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Yeah, I genuinely have no idea what I'm doing. So all of this is super helpful.
I worked for a film distributor and I had no idea about all this stuff. And I guarantee you, a lot of my coworkers, they probably don't know that much about all, because it's like the legal stuff we don't really know about. But yeah, I had never made a film before and I didn't know what I was doing. So we figured it out.
Nice. Well, and that's not the fun part of making a film, right? The fun part of making the film is making the film, not doing all the paperwork that has to be done to get it out. So
I'm still traumatized by the process of having to get like all the music licenses, and a lot of it was through Universal. It was horrible.
Wow. So I'm really lucky. I had someone who actually scored the film for me, and he did that, hoping it would go far and wide. And I'm a photographer, so I have a lot of stills because that's what I do. So and it's a documentary. So it'll just be interesting. The whole thing's been a journey. The whole thing has been learned by doing, but obviously I want this story to get out to the world. So thank you for helping me be a little less terrified of the distribution process. It's much appreciated.
Sure thing. Good luck.
Great. Yeah. And another great film. In fact, every film in our festival is great. So I don't have to highlight any particular one, but I am proud of Brittany for making an incredible first film that became our closing night film. So yeah. So it looks like we're very, very close to 4 o'clock my time, noon your time. I think we probably should we wrap up, Grace, or ask
we have one more question from
okay.
Ravenel, and then we can have that one be the last one.
Okay. Ravenel, that's what you said, right?
Yes.
There he is. Hi.
You're on mute.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
I should have known. Hi everybody. Thanks for that. Yeah, I'm also, it's my first feature-length documentary, which is at the festival. It's called Road to Vrndavan. It's set on an 1,800-kilometer tuk-tuk trip down the west coast of India, and then headed to this girls' school in Vrndavan, which I used to live in 20 years ago because I was a monk for most of my 20s. And it looks at the whole barriers that girls in India face accessing education and staying in education. And then I face a criticism about why am I doing it as a man? So I go back again to look at the role of men in trying to help change their mindsets to help support girls. My question is, in terms of distribution, I came in a little late, so apologies if it was mentioned earlier, but Tony, you mentioned about getting it in many, many different places. So if your film is not like, Die Hard 4 or something, it's not going to be a blockbuster, it's like a documentary. What are the likely realistic kind of places that it can go where it can potentially make some money, even if not a lot of money?
Yeah. Well, first, of course, there is theaters, but for those that aren't necessarily going to make money in theaters or even play in theaters, there's a lot of VOD options. And those are the internet-based platforms like iTunes, like Amazon Transactional, like Google Play, Fandango Now, Vimeo, YouTube, Xbox and PlayStation, and many, many others. There's the cable platforms like Comcast, Spectrum, Xfinity. There's the satellite platforms like DirecTV, Dish. There's the telco platforms like Verizon and AT&T Uverse. And then there's all the streamers, the Netflix, Hulu, Prime. There's the pay one customers like HBO, who now are in the streaming game with HBO Max. There's Showtime, there's Stars. maybe there's a deal to be done with one of the newer emerging ones. You know, there's Paramount Plus, and there's Peacock, and there's IMDb TV, all these ad-supported VOD partners who now have a lot of money behind them too. Fox bought Tubi, Viacom bought Pluto. I live in Los Angeles, and when Fox bought Tubi, when Viacom bought Pluto, I couldn't go 2 blocks without seeing an ad for one of those for, you know, a year, basically. There's still even money to be made in physical media. So, you know, there's also airlines, there's also hotels, there's the educational piece that we discussed earlier. So there's a lot of places. And look, you might strike out on iTunes and other transactional, but then get a big streaming deal. Or you might strike out in both of those, get no streaming deal, don't do anything on transactional, and then it's up on, you know, Roku and Tubi and Pluto and makes all this money there. Sometimes the movie, you know, it makes money in year 4, not in year 1. And you never know, but there's lots of places.
And you mentioned, thank you so much. You mentioned earlier that it could be in lots of different places. Is it likely that, would that be in how you negotiate each license or each region, that it could be in many places at once? Would they not want potentially to have it, whoever wants it, would they not want it completely?
Well, with regions, if you mean outside the country, that's a separate conversation where then you're talking about usually a sales agent, a foreign sales agent, approaching all the versions of myself and the people who would be in my position at Magnolia, only they're, you know, the Tony from the UK and the Tony from Japan. And they're going and asking them, like, are you interested in this for your territory? And maybe that's a streaming deal. Maybe that's a broadcast deal. Maybe it's a theatrical deal. And that is really dependent on what the movie is and what that territory is.
Gotcha. But in one region, like say in your region, it could potentially be, a deal could be done with multiple platforms at the same time.
Oh yeah, like usually our films we would put out, you know, in the transactional window on like 100 platforms, and those are spread between internet, cable, satellite, you know, telco. But then it, you know, like the Netflix deal or streaming deal, that'd be like 4 months later. Sometimes though, you know, Netflix or someone else might come in and buy something as an original. And that usually is going to mean a lot more money to you up front, but that's the only place it lives then. So like, yeah, you're a Netflix original, you probably got a lot of money from that, but it's only on Netflix. And so you have to debate, you know, the pros and cons of that. You know, there are films that we have that we put out on transactional, but it wasn't until they were on Netflix a few months later when my friends, you know, on the East Coast would be like, hey, I saw your logo on this movie. I'm like, oh, they saw it on Netflix. That's where they watch stuff.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's nice to have that rollout and see where it pops up.
Thank you very much. That's helpful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You guys have been amazing. Danielle, Tony, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, let's all just give them, I miss applause. You can hear mine, that's it. But you've really been amazing. And I can't thank you enough for all sharing your knowledge and expertise. And I know everyone agrees. And this has been recorded. So I think we'll be able to share this from our website after the festival as well. So if any of you want to listen in again or share it, please do. So we'll say goodbye, and there's still plenty of festival left. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great festival.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.